So I haven't posted in a while, and there's a whole slew of reasons why. You can kind of see on my Instagram like posts I've been making if you want to catch up on what's been going on in my life. But I'm here today because I committed to doing 28 Days of the Moon, hosted by Maha and Amber. And I will link their channels below, as well as the playlist of everyone else participating in this. That said, I've shot a lot of videos. I just haven't edited them and uploaded them. So maybe they'll be posted soon. Who knows? Yeah. So the topic for my video is the sun and moon balance in yoga. So the reason I chose this topic is because both yoga and tarot are a huge part of my spiritual practice. And another reason is, okay, so my birthday is tomorrow, July 16th. Hopefully I'll get this video up by today, July 15th. But my astrological signs are Cancer Sun, which is the 28 Days of the Moon series is celebrating the sun in Cancer. But the ruling planet for Cancer is the moon, right? So I'm a Cancer Sun, but I'm also a Leo moon, which means my moon sign is ruled by the sun because Leo is ruled by the sun. So I've always had this kind of interest in the sun and moon balance, just because of that juxtaposition with my sun sign being ruled by the moon and my moon sign being ruled by the sun. And while my hands are here, my rising is Libra. So, you know, finding balance, that's part of Libra, and relationships and a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm not an expert in. That's just my scratching the surface knowledge of my signs in astrology. Okay, so that's why I'm so interested in this. And this is also kind of like finding the balance of yoga and tarot also. Yoga as a spiritual practice, not just an exercise. So let's begin. Okay, so I want to begin with exploring the moon from the tarot perspective. I have the Tarot of the Spirit here with me. I only brought a few decks with me on the road so that I could do client readings, and also I'm actually working right now with Gaian Tarot. You can read all about it on Instagram. I won't bore you with all that right now. But this is the moon card from Tarot of the Spirit. And I just wanted to read a little bit from the guidebook written by Pamela Eakins. The art is done by Joyce Eakins, her mother, I believe. You cannot see the future clearly, but you must stay on your chosen path. Trust your intuition. At your darkest hour, you will find that you hold your own light. Use your own light to overcome your fears. Shedding light on your fears will propel you towards self-understanding, strength, and self-confidence. Through this process, you will heal and move into happiness. And if you know the order of tarot, after the moon comes the sun, which I will not be reading about. I just wanted to speak to the healing power of the moon and being in darkness. So, oh gosh, I forgot to say, I'm staying in a tiny house right now. I'm not in California. We are social distancing in nature, and we got a van. Sorry, I didn't mention all this stuff. Okay, back to the moon. I'll do a whole other video about that. Or follow on Instagram. So the moon, being in darkness. So a lot of times religion or Abrahamic religions emphasize being in connection with the divine, which I call the sun. Like not the sun like Jesus the sun, which I respect. And I've learned a lot from that type of religion as well. But I mean the sun as in the solar sun. And for me, my name is Mystic Sunchild, right, on this channel. And that's because I try to always find that connection, that mystical connection with the divine, that oneness. But my path to that has been a lot of traveling through darkness. I've had several dark nights of the soul. There's one video, if I remember, I'll link it below, about one of my dark nights of the soul. And every time I've learned so much about my shadow, the unseen parts of the unconscious, that sometimes rules our behavior. And I've learned a lot about my inner light and finding my way back to that. So one issue I have sometimes with Abrahamic religions is that emphasis kind of creates a fear of the darkness. And I don't think there needs to be a fear of the darkness, right? Because all paths lead back to the divine. All paths lead back to the soul. Or okay, now I'm trying to break down what I think the soul means and all sorts of stuff. Watch some of my old videos. I've probably talked about that already. So the moon is an important stage in the tarot fool's journey. Okay, so now I want to talk about the sun and moon in yoga. And we're going to discuss 2 different ways it shows up. Actually, 3. And I'm going to break this down by the sources. And I think that's important, especially as a white woman, trying to talk about yoga. I don't consider myself a teacher of yoga. I am forever a student of yoga. So I have 2 books here, and they come from the sources, or lineages. They've studied with gurus, and they are gurus in themselves. This first book is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So yoga is, I study the eight limbs of yoga. And these are the sutras. They're aphorisms, I think is how you say it. It's like the Bible of yoga. Sorry to equate that with Abrahamic religions there. But this one is by Swami Satchidananda. So Patanjali is the original person who took yoga, which is derived from Hindu tradition, and just kind of took yoga itself. Yoga meaning yoking of the individual self with the universal self. That's one way to look at it. So he created this 8 limbs. Now, Satchidananda is just the person he's a guru, a teacher of yoga, and he is also breaking them down. So there's the Sanskrit in the book. You can see the Sanskrit, the translation of the Sanskrit, and then he also has commentary. Now, I like to study in a comparative kind of way, like finding the balance or what is actually being communicated. And when I read multiple sources, I'm able to see like more of the root of what is being communicated, if that makes any sense. So the second book I have here is Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. And this was written in 1893. He is not around anymore. Neither is this guy, I don't think. And this is another breakdown of the sutras of Patanjali. Yeah, but this one's a little bit shorter. So this guy has a little bit more commentary. One thing I want to note about this particular book is there's a bit of Islamophobic language at the very start of it, which I don't think is necessary. And yeah, and he's also more of an atheist, it seems, in his writing. You can read more about it. I just wanted to give that warning, because I don't know, there's some stuff with India and like Hindu and Muslim culture that I think may have impacted him. And I think colonial impact might have made it, like white colonialism in India might have compelled him, that's what I want to say, compelled him to present it in a more scientific manner, just because Hindu religion was really suppressed in India. So yeah, that's just, I guess, 2 warnings about this book. But yeah, let's get into what it talks about with the sun and moon. So this part about the sun and then the part about the moon come from the Sutras of Patanjali, and it talks about the powers that one can attain through practicing yoga. And it's not like a superpower, but it's sometimes described as a superpower. It's more like a deep understanding, and it comes from the last 3 limbs of yoga. Dharana, Dharana, sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly because I mostly read and study, but Dharana and Dhyana, and then the last limb of yoga, which is Samadhi, which is like finding oneness. So it's, to break it down, concentration, meditation, oneness. So you can concentrate on different things, and they reveal certain truths, and then you meditate on it, and then you find this oneness with that, and then you kind of you get the understanding of what that object is if you're meditating on an object, but you have the understanding of it outside of its like physical representation. Putting things into words. Okay, so number 27. I'm going to go through just four of the sutras. Number 27 is, by making samyama on the sun. Samyama is those last 3 limbs of yoga. By making samyama on the sun comes the knowledge of the world. And then I'll break that down in a second. Number 28. On the moon comes the knowledge of the clusters of stars. So on the sun, I see as you when you go out in the sun, go out into the world, you have this certain understanding of life. Like, look at this green, beautiful stuff. You see how light comes into the photon, or the photons come into the, what is it? Through photosynthesis. You just understand how everything is energized by the sun, and how we participate in the world in an extroverted manner out in the sun. And then when you contemplate on the moon, you get knowledge of the stars. So like the cosmos, our place in the universe. It's like when you go inward, and so like the moon energy is more inward too, right? So when you go inward, you have more of an inner understanding versus an outer understanding. And yeah, you contemplate the universe. We've been camping on this trip, and a huge part of it was actually seeing the stars that you can't see when you're in a city. We camped in the Mojave Desert for a night, and we just laid on the roof of the car and stared up at the stars and just, I don't know, communed with the universe. So yeah, truly, to get the deep understanding, you have to do this contemplation, right? You do the contemplation, the meditation, and then you find that oneness. So words are not going to do this justice, but that's just a perspective on the sun and moon in yoga from this source, from Vivekananda, which is an interpretation of Patanjali's sutras. And I wanted to show 2 more. So number 29, on the pole, so samyama on the pole star, with that comes knowledge of the motion of the stars. So the pole star being the North Pole, or at least that's my understanding, the North Pole, or Polaris, I believe is what the North Star is. You kind of see all the stars rotating around it because the Earth's axis that it rotates upon points towards the North Star. Anyways, okay, so here's the one that really intrigues me. Number 30. On the navel circle comes the knowledge of constitution of the body. So the navel circle meaning the solar plexus, the inner sun. I'm nerding out right now. So that's where I want to go into this book, because he has a really great commentary on this. Okay, so number 27. Oh, I'm not going to pronounce this right. This book is awesome because it has the pronunciation of the Sanskrit too, and then also it breaks down each word. So really great book. Okay. By samyama, on the sun, knowledge of the entire solar system is obtained. So in the other book, we got knowledge of the world. And then in this book, it says knowledge of the entire solar system. So it's like all the planets as they revolve around the sun, right? So there's a new perspective, or a different translation. Number 28. By samyama, on the moon, comes knowledge of the stars' arrangement. So that could mean astrology too, right? But with that's a very conceptualized, like when I say astrology, that's very conceptualized. Truly, this is experiential knowledge. So doing the concentration, the meditation, and then resulting in samadhi, the oneness, is how you get this information, not from reading a book. That's why I try to reference personal experience also, but you can't really put into words certain truths because that kind of removes it from the truth. This is always a finger pointing at the truth, any book you read. Okay, so let's go back to this. Number 29, by samyama, on the pole star, comes knowledge of the star's movement. That's, I think, is kind of word for word on that one, of number 29. So number 30, the one that interests me. First the translation and then the commentary. By samyama, on the navel plexus, knowledge of the body's constitution is obtained. So the commentary is what I'm so excited about. Again, this is by Satchidananda. You won't need an x-ray. You can understand the whole body and its constitution because the solar plexus is the center of the body. It is something like saying that if you understand the sun, you understand the whole solar system. So that's equating our energy body to the solar system, which is so fascinating because we see it externally, but then it's like kind of pointing to the fact that we have that within us as well. So in the next book I'm going to read from, he talks about this embodied solar system, this embodied cosmos in a very interesting way. But let's just put it like this right now. Our solar system, the sun, which I view as the indwelling divine, is right here. It's also where we take action. I'm pointing to my solar plexus. It's out of frame, but it's where we take action from. I talk about this a little bit in the Tarot Animal Oracle. We've all, on the Instagram page for Tarot Animal Oracle, we've broken down the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus, and the heart chakra. And then a lot of BLM stuff started happening and my focus went to there, and it's still Black Lives Matter. My focus is still over there a lot, which is why I haven't been posting a lot on it about Tarot Animal Oracle right now. But if you want to go to that, you can really see how it's broken down. So you have where you take action from. That's as much as I'll say there. But actually, no, I'll also say this. What if it's inspired action, right? Inspired meaning from the divine that comes from the solar plexus. Okay, let's look at this other book. Okay, so I just moved because the sun was just on this side of my face and you can see my shadow on this side of my face. That was a nerdy tarot joke. Okay, so this book is Raja Yoga, The Art and Science of Raja Yoga. I've talked about this one before. This is like a course book, and it's by Swami Kriyananda, and he's a disciple of Yogananda. So if you've read, what is it, the autobiography of a yoga, of a yogi, he's a disciple of that guy. And I think he's American. Okay. I think that's important to note where the lineage has come from and where it's kind of being taught from now, right? So this is taught from an American perspective. And so he talks about stuff like Christ consciousness in this book, which has some of that. You can tell there's influence there. Okay. I'm going to be reading a lot and inserting comments. This is page 394. For you are the immortal Atman. You are spirit, capital S spirit. The very universe, vast as it is inferior to your soul's majesty. Stars and planets, like your own body, are manifestations of spiritual realities that you can discover on deeper levels of your own inner being. But there, right there, you see that that connecting the body to planets, or stars and planets. The very physical universe is but a symbol of those higher realities. It is the lesser always that symbolizes the greater, never the reverse. Since those realities can be realized only in the self, capital S self, it is not wrong to say that the universe is the outer symbol of man's inner world. No comments needed. In this way, my guru said that the sun is the symbol of the spiritual eye, not the reverse, the spiritual eye, which is interesting, right? Because solar plexus is down here. Let's find out why it's there. The moon, too, is a symbol of the human ego. Now, I feel like that can be inflammatory to those of us who see the moon as sacred. So, because ego has negative connotations sometimes. But I will also say, which is interesting because I wrote about the solar plexus as the seat of the ego on the Tarot Animal Oracle description. What was I about to say? Which is interesting. Oh, because the ego is necessary. We need the ego to operate out in the world, out in the sun. We need to have identity. Now, our true identity is the true self, right? The capital S self. But we are manifestations on this earth, and we are unique. And yeah, we have personalities. We need this to interact. Okay. So now we're getting into the moon. The moon, too, is a symbol of the human ego. As the moon only reflects the sun's light, so the ego has no reality of its own, no light but that which it reflects from the soul. So see, it's still pointing back to that inner sun, that indwelling divine nature. Hindu deities are sometimes depicted with the moon in their foreheads to show that their ego consciousness, normally centered in the medulla oblongata, has been transformed into soul consciousness at the Christ center. Lord Shiva is even depicted with the moon in his hair, in the area of Sahasrara. I didn't say that right, but that's the crown chakra. To show that his ego is totally merged in the infinite spirit. And that, like I mentioned before, that union, this is my crystal that I represent that. The yellow is the, let's say, ego self, the body self, the self that exists here on earth is merged with that true self. That's the clear crystal. This is my yoga stone for that reason. So that union, that yoga. So the moon is merged with the divine self, the ego self with the divine self. Then it gets into Hindu astrology or Vedic astrology. Okay, so I just wanted to pause from the books for a second. Oh, you can see my coffee at the bottom. And talk about that. So we have the ego represented as the moon and the divine self represented as the sun. And there's it seems like there's contradictory information between the two sources of information I shared, but that's just because you can't take things literally. So by you, I mean I, or all of us. We can't take things too literally here. So we have the sun here, and then we also have the sun up here. And just kind of go with it. For me, I've connected the two as bringing that active energy all the way up to here. In when working with the chakras, you want to raise the energy up through to the crown, and or the physical body, you, as represented by the root chakra in some cases, you want to bring that to identify from the small self to the infinite self, which is up here. But yeah, the moon always reflects the light of the sun, right? That's interesting. Now the moon in itself is its own entity. Okay, so for me, how I've brought all these concepts together is, and this is what I think yoga and tarot, where they kind of try to bring us to cosmic consciousness. But for me, I exist on earth, and that's what I like more about, let's say, witchy practices. I've heard witches described as stewards of the earth. I think a friend of mine posted that. Maybe it was a meme. I don't know the source of that, but I really love that. Stewards of the earth. And if you're a steward of the earth, a bumblebee just flew by. Sorry. If you're a steward of the earth, your relationship to the moon is going to be different. So I want to say that there's a different sacredness to that. And for me, I'm finding also the balance between earth-based spirituality and this more cosmic spirituality. What am I trying to say? I want to say that this is just one point of view, or 2 points of view. We got tarot, we've got cosmic consciousness is one point of view. But we're on earth for a reason. And being on earth is a gift. So now if you look at being on earth, you have the solar cycles and the moon cycles. If you're a steward of the earth, the sun cycles are going to reflect the seasons. And you see changes happening, long-term change. And the moon cycles are going to reflect those shorter cycles. Every 28 days, right? 28 days of the moon. And I'm 100% certain that other people have talked about this in their videos, so I'm not going to get into the details of that. But I just want to say that that is a very important, earth consciousness is just as important as these more up here cosmic consciousness perspectives. Okay. Back to what I was going to talk about. Okay, so I was getting really hot. I have the air off we're in this tiny house, and so I just put my hair up, and Todd just went through. He's going to get us some, I think, groceries and also breakfast burritos. We're wearing masks, we're social distancing, and trying to stay as isolated as possible. Okay, so this book, this one's by Swami Satyananda Saraswati. And this is about the Surya Namaskara practice, which is sun salutation, if you've practiced physical yoga. So we talked about the last 3 limbs of yoga, and the one that's most known in the United States, at least, is asana. And that's like the physical poses in yoga. And so this sun salutation, I forget when it originated. It's more recent than the Sutras of Patanjali. I don't believe he actually specified any asanas. So this comes from, I don't know, a more recent source. Okay, so all that said, I'm not even going to be talking about asanas. Oh, actually, let me say one thing. There's also another one for moon salutation. I forget the translation. I think it's because I don't really practice moon salutation. I stick to this in vinyasa yoga. But there's one, I think it's Chandra Namaskara. And that one is even more recent, I believe. So I'll try to link stuff below on those. But yeah, so this book that talks about the movement of energy in the body. And so we've talked about the moon and sun in tarot briefly. We talked about the moon and sun as focal points for concentration and self-discovery with the last 3 limbs of yoga. We talked about it as a deeper exploration of the solar system and the placement of it, and the moon and the sun and the light reflecting off the moon. And now we're going to talk about not the sun and the moon, but solar and lunar energy. So in yoga, there's also an understanding about the energy body. We all know about the chakras and the 7 main chakras, and there's also nadis, which are energy channels. Okay, so in this book, he talks about the idea of having a regular practice, like having Surya Namaskara during each sunrise, getting the body in rhythm, getting the energy flow in rhythm as well. And that's what the physical practice is there to do, as is the Ayurveda, with like the different ways you can eat and balance the energies in your body. So here, the nadis, it is possible through our lifestyle to live in a predominantly Pingala extrovert existence, or in a predominantly Ida introvert existence. So I know throughout my life I've been more extroverted, and then through those darker nights of the souls, and also just through those more reflective phases, I've been more introverted, and sometimes I've been a balance of the two. So it's like, he talks about in this book, he talks about being Pingala dominant individuals and Ida dominant individuals. But he also states that there's a balance. So it happens, I think, every 90 minutes. Yes. In 90-minute cycles, we go through moving from Ida dominance to Pingala dominance. And then there's sattvic state. Sattva is like you could be more tamasic and rajic, which is more underactive and overactive. And then sattva is that like balance. And so we go through this period from going from extroverted to introverted every 90 minutes, according to this. And during that changeover is when we're the most balanced. And that brings to mind, temperance. And this is again from Tarot of the Spirit. So in temperance, you see oftentimes a cup. So in the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith, you see the 2 cups, one with water, one with fire, which is, water is connected to the moon, fire is connected to the sun, and you see this alchemy happening of something new created that didn't exist before. In this card here, we see the sun and we see the moon here. The sun representing, I believe, the superconsciousness, and this representing the subconsciousness. Let me look I have her book open to the page, and I kind of want to discover this together, like what she's saying, and I don't know, let's see if we make any cool connections. So here we have the armless spirit of temperance, clothed in a gown reminiscent of stone, which the cube of divine law is fashioned, is a manifestation of Archangel Michael. In temperance, Michael stands between the sun, which is the light of spirit, and higher consciousness. So yeah, super consciousness, which is what I call it. And a lot of books call it, not just me. And the dark moon representing the subconscious, now in ascension and transcending the limitations of matter. That's interesting, the dark moon, because where we are in the cycle right now, we're moving into a new moon, or a dark moon, which leads to the new moon. This is really stream of thought right now. I haven't made a video in so long. And this kind of connects okay, so we talked about moon cycles and sun cycles, and I don't know, I'm feeling like my focus sometimes shifts really far into focusing on solar practice and then into a more earth-based lunar practice. And let me read you the next line from this book, which kind of epitomizes what I'm feeling about it right now. Temperance is the art of balancing and moderation. Thus, the sense of the card is that of a gyroscope. I love that. It's like, that word is so perfect. A gyroscope, which readily rights itself in the face of movement. Moderation in one sense, right? If you're in your Ida, you can start balancing that with more active Surya Namaskara, getting the rhythm and cycle and engaging in the body actively. And then if you're more in the Pingala energy, like not just in those natural cycles, but in life. And like there's always something to learn by being in those, like too heavily leaning in one direction or the other. There's always something to learn from those extremes, right? But ultimately we want to get back into balance. So then you can moderate that with more meditation, more sitting and looking inward, or studying the self, and studying sacred texts, or I don't know, whatever's of interest to you. I don't know. Temperance really came up. It also made me think of the one from Light Seers Tarot. There's literally a moon and a sun in the Light Seers Tarot on either side. Yeah, just interesting stuff. Sun and moon balance. I can't believe I didn't think of temperance to begin with. But that's a fun way to end this. We started with tarot and we went into yoga, and now we're moving back into there. I wonder if this took me 90 minutes to shoot, right? Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll try to list all the things that I mentioned in the video comment box below, and maybe do timestamps. I don't know. And I have a lot of new videos, and right now I put my soul chats on pause. If you wanted to do a reading with me, that's on pause while I'm traveling. But I do have, I'm doing written readings right now. So if you want a written reading, you can go to my website, vvverone.com, and yeah, you can purchase one there. But yeah, check out the rest of the videos in 28 Days of the Moon. I'm so grateful to Maha and Amber for reaching out to me to participate. I just love having this online community to talk all things spirituality and connecting about things that are like cross-cultural and cross-spirituality. Like we see the moon and the sun showing up in these different spiritual spheres, and so spheres, see what I did there? So it's nice to see like the overlaps, and yeah, I'm really excited to see everyone else's videos. I have a lot of catching up to do, like I said, but I'm definitely going to be watching and commenting on everyone's. Alright, sending you guys all love, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that is.